Imagine this for a moment. You're locked inside a wooden box. Not a large one. A box. So small you can't fully stretch your legs. So cramped you can barely move your arms. There's no light, no fresh air, just darkness and the sound of footsteps above you. Now imagine living like that, not for a night, not for a week, but for 7 years. This is the story of Colleen Stan, a young woman who trusted the wrong car and vanished into a nightmare that almost no one knew existed. May 1977. The highways of Northern California stretched endlessly under the hot afternoon sun. 20-year-old Colleen Stan stood by the roadside with her thumb out, hoping someone would give her a ride. She was trying to reach a friend's birthday party hundreds of miles away. Back then, hitchhiking was common. People trusted strangers. But Colleen had a rule. If something didn't feel right, she didn't get in. And that day, she had already turned down several rides. One driver seemed nervous. Another gave her a strange feeling she couldn't explain. So she waited. Then a blue van slowed beside her. Inside were 3 people. A man, a woman, and a small baby sitting between them. To Colleen, it looked like the safest ride she'd seen all day. A family, normal, harmless. The man introduced himself as Cameron Hooker. His wife sat quietly in the passenger seat, holding their infant daughter. They told Colleen they were heading the same direction. Everything seemed perfectly ordinary. After a moment of hesitation, Colleen climbed into the van. At first, the ride felt normal. They chatted casually. The road rolled by. The baby made small noises from the front seat. Nothing felt dangerous. Nothing felt wrong. Until suddenly, Cameron Hooker turned off the highway. The van slowed to a stop on a quiet, isolated road. Before Colleen could even ask what was happening, Hooker attacked. It happened in seconds. He pulled over, spun around, and forced a strange wooden device over her head. It was heavy, tight, and completely blocked her vision. The device locked around her neck like a collar. Colleen couldn't see. She couldn't scream. She could barely breathe. Her hands were tied. Her body forced down into the back of the van. The friendly ride she thought she had accepted had just become a kidnapping, and the nightmare was only beginning. Hooker drove for hours. Inside the dark box over her head, Colleen had no idea where she was going. Every bump in the road made her heart race. Every turn made her wonder if she would survive the night. Eventually, the van stopped. She was dragged out, still blind, still bound, and led into a house. But the most terrifying moment came when Hooker lifted a mattress from the floor. Underneath it was a wooden box, long and narrow, almost like a coffin. He shoved Colleen inside. The lid slammed shut, and just like that, her world disappeared. The box was barely large enough for her body. She couldn't sit upright. She couldn't stretch. She could only lie curled in darkness. Sometimes she stayed inside for 23 hours a day. The only sounds she heard were footsteps in the room above, voices through the floor. The ordinary life of a family, happening just inches away. Days blurred together, then weeks, then months. But Cameron Hooker wasn't relying on chains and locks alone. He had something far more powerful: fear. Hooker told Colleen about a secret organization called the Company. According to him, it was a powerful underground group that watched everything he did. They had spies everywhere. Police, neighbors, strangers on the street. If Colleen tried to escape, if she spoke to anyone, if she even thought about running away, the Company would find her. And they wouldn't just punish her. They would torture her family. Hooker made the threat sound terrifyingly real. And trapped in isolation with no way to prove otherwise, Colleen began to believe him. Years passed. While the world outside kept moving, Colleen's life stayed frozen in darkness. Sometimes Hooker allowed her out of the box. She was forced to do chores around the house, wash dishes, clean rooms, pretend everything was normal. Imagine walking through a house, knowing you could run out the door, yet being too terrified to try. Because somewhere out there, the Company was watching, waiting, ready to destroy everyone you loved. Hooker had turned Colleen's prison into something worse than chains. He had turned it into a prison inside her own mind. Then something unexpected began to change. Inside the house, another person was watching, Hooker's wife. For years, she had known pieces of the truth, but she had never fully confronted it, never fully admitted what was happening beneath her own bed, until one day, the weight of the secret became too heavy to carry. And in 1984, after 7 years of silence, she finally walked up to Colleen, looked her in the eyes, and said something that shattered the illusion Hooker had built. 3 simple words. Words that changed everything. She whispered, "The company isn't real." For the first time in 7 years, the walls of fear around Colleen Stan began to crack. But what happened next would shock investigators across the entire country. Because when the truth about Cameron Hooker finally came out, police discovered something even more disturbing than the box beneath the bed. Something that suggested Colleen might not have been his first victim, and possibly not his last. For 7 years, Colleen Stan lived inside a nightmare carefully built by one man, a nightmare that existed in the shadows of an ordinary house. But in 1984, everything began to change. Standing in a quiet hallway of the house, Cameron Hooker's wife looked directly at Colleen and spoke the words that shattered years of psychological control. "The company isn't real." For a moment, Colleen didn't respond. Her mind struggled to process what she had just heard. For years, she had believed that a powerful secret organization was watching her every move, that if she tried to escape, if she spoke to anyone, her family would be hunted down. It was a fear that had kept her trapped, not just in the wooden box beneath the bed, but inside her own mind. Now, suddenly, that fear was beginning to crumble. Hooker's wife, Janice, began to explain everything. There was no secret organization, no spies, no people watching. It had all been a lie Cameron Hooker had invented to control her. 7 years of terror, built on nothing but manipulation. For the first time since 1977, Colleen realized something she had not allowed herself to believe. She could leave. But escaping wasn't as simple as running out the front door. 7 years of psychological conditioning had left deep scars. Fear doesn't disappear overnight. Even knowing the truth, Colleen was terrified. What if Hooker somehow found out? What if he came after her? What if the nightmare wasn't really over? Still, Janice knew something had to be done. She secretly gave Colleen permission to leave the house. No chain stopped her. No locks held her in. Just fear. Slowly, Colleen walked out the door. Step by step, she left the house that had been her prison for nearly a decade. The outside world felt unfamiliar, strange. Cars passed by. People moved along the street. Life continued normally. But for Colleen, everything felt unreal. 7 years had passed. 7 years the world had moved on without her. Eventually, Colleen made her way to a bus station. From there, she traveled to a friend's home, the first safe place she had known in years. It was there that she finally made the most important decision of her life. She went to the police. At first, the officers struggled to believe what they were hearing. A woman held captive in a box for 7 years? Hidden beneath a bed inside a suburban home? It sounded impossible. But as Colleen told her story, the horrifying details began to unfold. The wooden box, the head device used to blind and silence her, the psychological manipulation, the invented organization known as the company. Investigators quickly realized something chilling. Every detail was real. Police moved quickly. Soon after, Cameron Hooker was arrested. When investigators searched the house, they discovered the box beneath the bed exactly where Colleen said it would be. A narrow wooden coffin-like structure, barely large enough for a human body. The very place where Colleen had spent countless hours trapped in darkness. The evidence was undeniable. But what shocked investigators even more was the level of control Hooker had maintained. At times, Colleen had been allowed outside the house. She had gone for walks. She had even interacted with other people. Yet she never tried to escape, because the psychological prison Hooker created was stronger than physical chains. The case quickly captured national attention. How could something like this happen? How could someone be held captive for so long without anyone noticing? But the most disturbing revelation was yet to come. During the investigation, police began to suspect something even darker. They believed Colleen might not have been Hooker's first victim. Evidence suggested they're made during the investigation. Police began to suspect something even darker. They believed Colleen might not have been Hooker's first victim. Evidence suggested there may have been another woman years earlier. A young hitchhiker named Mary Elizabeth Marais Stauffer had disappeared under mysterious circumstances. Her case had never been solved. Investigators began to wonder if Cameron Hooker could somehow be connected, but proving it would be difficult. Many questions remained unanswered. When the trial finally began, the courtroom was filled with tension. Prosecutors presented the disturbing evidence: the box, the restraints, the elaborate psychological manipulation. But the most powerful testimony came from Colleen herself. After everything she had endured, she faced Cameron Hooker in court and told the world exactly what he had done. The jury listened in silence. The details were almost impossible to imagine. A young woman kidnapped, controlled, locked in darkness for years, all while the world outside remained completely unaware. In the end, the verdict was clear. Cameron Hooker was found guilty. He was sentenced to 104 years in prison, a punishment meant to ensure he would never walk free again. But Colleen's story didn't end with the trial. Surviving something like that changes a person forever. Yet despite everything she endured, Colleen refused to let her life be defined by the nightmare. She slowly rebuilt her life, step by step, finding strength most people could barely imagine. Her survival became one of the most astonishing stories in true crime history, a reminder of how powerful psychological control can be and how incredibly strong the human spirit can be. Because even after 7 years in darkness, Colleen Stan walked back into the light. Alive had been another woman years earlier. A young hitchhiker named Mary Elizabeth Marais Stauffer had disappeared under mysterious circumstances. Her case had never been solved. Investigators began to wonder if Cameron Hooker could somehow be connected, but proving it would be difficult. Many questions remained unanswered. When the trial finally began, the courtroom was filled with tension. Prosecutors presented the disturbing evidence: the box, the restraints, the elaborate psychological manipulation. But the most powerful testimony came from Colleen herself. After everything she had endured, she faced Cameron Hooker in court and told the world exactly what he had done. The jury listened in silence. The details were almost impossible to imagine. A young woman kidnapped, controlled, locked in darkness for years, all while the world outside remained completely unaware. In the end, the verdict was clear. Cameron Hooker was found guilty. He was sentenced to 104 years in prison, a punishment meant to ensure he would never walk free again. But Colleen's story didn't end with the trial. Surviving something like that changes a person forever. Yet despite everything she endured, Colleen refused to let her life be defined by the nightmare. She slowly rebuilt her life, step by step, finding strength most people could barely imagine. Her survival became one of the most astonishing stories in true crime history, a reminder of how powerful psychological control can be and how incredibly strong the human spirit can be. Because even after 7 years in darkness, Colleen Stan walked back into the light, alive,